Good morning. It is Monday morning, meaning it's time for some Motivational Monday. My name is Pastor Christopher here at Urbana United Methodist Church, and hope you had a great weekend. And we are in the Advent season, so we're counting down and expecting the coming of the Christ, Christmas night, and it's an exciting time. Yesterday at church, I shared a story about how it's not uncommon for myself to get a call early morning on Sundays when I'm here at the church. I try to get here by 6:30 or so to get ready for Sunday morning services, and I get calls sometimes from my wife explaining that I need to talk to my daughter, and I'll let you use your imagination on which daughter. And the other thing is, I don't always know why it's my daughter when they're in trouble, but that is what it is. I know it's hard to believe that I have not been a troublemaker or a problem child, but that was part of my growing up. So the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. And the one thing that would always neutralize my troublemaking, especially when I was my mom with my sister and me, and was the words, "I'm calling your dad." And I remember one summer, I was probably 8 years old, and we were at one of those really safe carnivals in a Kmart parking lot. And I got off a ride and I was exiting, and one of the latches snagged my leg and actually put a gash in it and tore it open. And I began to bleed everywhere, and I freaked out, and I'm like, oh my gosh. And my mom was like, you got to get stitches. I'm like, no way, I'm not getting stitches. And this is when I was really afraid of needles, and most kids are about that age, and especially when they're going to sew you up. And so we went to the urgent care down the road, which I'm pretty sure we had frequent flyer miles at because we visited so often. Everybody was always breaking or spraining or sick or doing something to their bodies there. And while we're there, they told me, yeah, you will need stitches, and we'll sew you up. And I was like, oh boy, this is not good. I am not into this needle thing going into my leg. And it got worse. She said, actually, we have to numb it up first with a shot, an injection. And I said, this is getting out of control. This is getting even worse. And so the nurse went to go get the supplies, and I'm thinking, this is not happening. I'm not letting anybody stick anything in my leg. And so I began scheming. And as the door opened from the nurse to go out for the first trip to get supplies, I noticed it swung open to a hallway where there was a door at the end of the hallway, but that ambulances were bringing people in to the urgent care. And I began to scheme a plan of escape. And so she came back in, and she had to go get one more thing. And so I knew this was my opportunity. The door swung open. I bolted off the table, down the hall, out the outside door, and began running through the parking lot and into an open field next to the urgent care. And 2 parcels down from there was a Fuddruckers. And that was my big plan. I'm going to run to Fuddruckers with this busted up leg, running away from getting it put back together. And so I sat there on a bench. There was no more plan at that point. That was my plan. And I heard the words from my mom, I'm calling your dad. And so then I relinquished control and went to back and I relinquished control. And the thing I want to get at is the idea of disruptions. My dad's voice and talking to him could disrupt any plan I thought I had. My plan would go out the window. And I believe that we all have those kind of those things that disrupt us, and I wish I could have gotten away with some of the stuff I tried to. I wish I wouldn't have had to go and get stitched up or had a shot, but my dad had a way of disrupting my plans. And so I invite you to think about what disrupts you, and maybe you're feeling disruptions already in this Advent season from colds and the weather and snow days and theme days and office parties and extra groceries and bills, or you're sick, or there's worse things that are going on in your relationships with your family, and there's disruptions there. I would invite you to rest in the promise of Jesus today that he brings peace. Jesus says in the Sermon on the Mount, blessed are the peacemakers. And that is what we're called to be. And I believe peace is actually also called to be inside of us as well. And so I would invite you to rest in the second week of Advent, where we celebrate the peace that comes with Jesus, that he brings peace both into our lives with disruptions, and then we get to help bring peace to others' disruptions. So that's your challenge. Your motivation this week is to find where you can find peace from the disruptions in your own life, but also help be a peacemaker to others. Have a blessed week, everyone.